Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Alex Soriano, your course facilitator in the course GEC4 Purposive Communication. I am so glad to have you all here as we begin this journey into the foundations of communication. You see, communication is far more than just the act of talking or writing. It is a fundamental human activity that allows us to connect, share our deepest ideas, and build lasting relationships. In this increasingly globalized and digital world, the ability to communicate clearly and responsibly is no longer just a bonus skill. It is a vital requirement for success in every field. Throughout this module, we are going to lay the essential groundwork. We will explore the fundamental concepts, the various models that explain how we interact, the principles that guide us, and the ethical considerations that govern how we should treat one another through language. Let's get started on becoming more effective communicators in every aspect of your life. As we embark on this journey to communication excellence, it is important to understand why this matters for you specifically. As a student here at Isabela State University, mastering purposive communication directly supports our goal of developing globally competitive human and technological resources. Your future success depends on your ability to articulate complex ideas, collaborate effectively with diverse teams, and critically evaluate the massive amounts of information we encounter daily. By the end of this module, you will be able to describe the nature and elements of both verbal and nonverbal communication in multicultural contexts. We will also explain different communication models, discuss key principles of effectiveness, and, perhaps most importantly, apply ethical considerations to ensure the responsible use of language in all your real-world interactions. This is the toolkit you need for your academic journey and your future career. Let's dive into the mechanics. Communication is not a simple one-way street where information just travels from point A to point B. Instead, it is a dynamic and transactional process, a continuous loop where participants are constantly sending and receiving information at the same time. Think of it as a dance rather than a monologue. Understanding the individual elements of this process is the first step to becoming a better communicator. The most widely accepted model of communication identifies several key components that must work together perfectly to create a meaningful exchange. In this loop, a sender encodes a message, which is then transmitted to a receiver. The receiver then decodes that message and sends feedback back to the original sender. This creates a cycle where meaning is constantly being negotiated and refined through every single interaction. To understand the big picture, we need to look at the first four core elements: the sender, the message, the channel, and the receiver. The sender is the person who initiates the interaction. They encode the message by choosing specific words, a particular tone, or even subtle gestures to represent their thoughts. Then we have the message itself. This is the actual information, idea, or feeling being conveyed. It can be verbal, nonverbal, or a mix of both. Next is the channel, which is the medium used to send that message. This could be a face-to-face chat, a phone call, an email, or even a physical letter. Finally, the receiver is the person who gets the message. They decode it, interpreting the information based on their own unique experiences, knowledge, and personal beliefs. Beyond the basics, we have three more critical elements: feedback, noise, and context. Feedback is the receiver's response, which lets the sender know if the message was actually understood. It can be verbal, like saying, "Got it," or nonverbal, like a simple nod or a confused look. Then there is noise, which is any barrier that interferes with the message. This could be physical noise, like a loud construction site, or psychological noise, like being too stressed to focus. Lastly, we have context, which is the setting of the communication. Context changes everything. For example, the phrase, "you're late," has a very different meaning when a parent says it to a child versus when a military officer says it to a subordinate. Always remember that the environment and relationship dictate how your words are heard. Now that we understand the basic elements, we can look at how they fit into different models. Over many years, researchers have developed these models to simplify and illustrate the incredibly complex process of how we exchange information. We generally look at three stages of evolution in these models: linear, interactive, and transactional. Each model builds upon the one before it, offering an increasingly sophisticated view of how we create meaning together. The linear model describes a simple, one-way flow of a message. The interactive model introduces the sender and receiver working with a feedback loop. Finally, the transactional model represents a simultaneous exchange that is heavily driven by context. Understanding these frameworks allows us to analyze any communication situation and identify where things might be going right or where a breakdown might occur. Ang linear model ay ang pinakasimpleng representasyon ng proseso ng komunikasyon. Sa modelong ito, nakikita ang komunikasyon bilang isang one-way street kung saan ang isang tagapagpadala ay nagpapadala ng mensahe at ang tagatanggap ay tumatanggap lamang. Walang feedback loop sa bersyo ito. Pinakamabisa ito para ilarawan ang mass communication gaya ng isang television news broadcast o pampublikong talumpati kung saan hindi agad makasagot ang mga nakikinig. Halimbawa, kapag ang isang news anchor ay nagbabahagi ng balita o ang isang opisyal ng gobyerno ay nagbibigay ng pampublikong mensahe sa radyo, makikita natin ang linear model sa aksyon. Gayunpaman, ang pinakalimitasyon nito ay hindi isinasaalang-alang ang mahalagang papel ng feedback at ang sabay-sabay na tatanian ng usapan ng tao. Mabisa ito para sa mga broadcast, pero masyadong limitado para ilarawan ang aktwal na interaksyon kapag personal na nag-uusap ang mga tao. The interactive model takes things a step further by introducing the feedback loop. In this model, the sender sends a message and the receiver provides a response. This is much more realistic for many of our digital interactions. A key concept here is what we call fields of experience. This refers to the unique backgrounds, cultures, and past experiences that every participant brings to the table. Communication is truly successful in this model when these fields of experience overlap. If participants have very different backgrounds, messages are much more likely to be misinterpreted. A great real-world example is an online discussion forum. When a student posts a question and another replies, their ability to understand each other depends entirely on their shared academic background and knowledge. The transactional model is the most comprehensive and modern way we look at communication. It views the process as a simultaneous two-way street where both people are acting as the sender and the receiver at the exact same time. It emphasizes that meaning isn't just sent, it is created through the interaction itself. Think about a group presentation. While the presenter is speaking, they are also observing the audience, who are simultaneously giving nonverbal cues like nodding or looking confused. The presenter then adjusts their delivery in real time based on that instant feedback. In a heated debate, this becomes even more complex. Both participants might be talking over each other, trying to get their point across while simultaneously listening and reacting to the other person's arguments. It is a continuous, bidirectional flow. To truly master communication, we must follow 6 core principles. First, communication is a process. It's a continuous flow where one interaction affects the next. Second, it is inevitable. You cannot not communicate, as even your silence sends a message. Third, it is irreversible. Once a message is sent, especially in the digital age, it creates a permanent footprint that cannot be taken back. Fourth, communication is purposeful. We always communicate to inform, persuade, entertain, or build relationships. Fifth, it is contextual. The meaning of your words is heavily shaped by the environment and your relationship with the listener. Finally, communication is ethical. It has moral implications, and being truthful and respectful is the foundation for building trust in any relationship. Let's look at why we say communication is a process and not just a single event. It is a continuous cycle of meetings, emails, and informal chats. Because it is a sequence of steps, the outcome of one interaction directly influences what happens next. For example, the way you handle a conversation with a colleague today will definitely shape your relationship with them tomorrow. In a professional setting, like a long-term project, this is critical. If a team leader fails to communicate a critical change in the project timeline, it creates a negative ripple effect. This one breakdown can lead to delays in the development phase, a confused marketing campaign, and ultimately a failed product launch. Ongoing dialogue is the key to preventing these types of failures. We must always remember that communication is irreversible. Imagine you post a comment on social media or fire off an email in the heat of the moment. The second you hit send, that message spreads. Others might see it, screenshot it, or share it, and at that point, the message takes on a life of its own. Even if you delete the post later, the digital footprint remains. The impact is often permanent and can follow you for years. This is a critical reminder for all of us. Once a text, email, or post is sent, it can be saved indefinitely. You must think carefully before you communicate because you simply cannot take it back once it's out there. In our digital world, your words are permanent. The principle of context tells us that the same words can have entirely different meanings depending on the circumstances. Context is a powerful force that shapes how every message is received. First, think about tone and delivery. The phrase, "that's amazing," can be genuine praise, or it can be biting sarcasm, depending on your tone and facial expression. Next, the setting matters. A formal pitch in a boardroom requires a much different tone than a casual chat about the same idea with a friend. Finally, relationship dynamics play a huge role. The phrase, "you're late," carries a very different weight and meaning when said by a parent to their child compared to a military officer speaking to a subordinate. Always consider who you are talking to and where you are. You cannot not communicate. This principle is fascinating. You are always communicating, even when you aren't speaking. Your silence, your posture, and your lack of response all send a message to those around you. Imagine a person sitting on a park bench with headphones on and arms crossed. They aren't saying a word, but their nonverbal cues are screaming, "I'm not saying anything, and best to leave me alone." People walking by might think, "Is something wrong?" or "They seem angry." This is because our nonverbal cues are constantly communicating our thoughts and feelings to the world, whether we intend them to or not. You must be aware that your body language often speaks louder than your words. Every time we communicate, we have a specific purpose in mind. Recognizing that purpose is the vital first step toward crafting an impactful message. There are four primary purposes we usually see. First, we communicate to inform, which is about sharing facts and instructions so everyone is on the same page. Second, we communicate to persuade, where we attempt to influence the beliefs or actions of others. Third, we communicate to entertain, using humor or stories to engage and provide enjoyment. Finally, we communicate to build relationships, strengthening social bonds and fostering connections. Whether you are giving a presentation or just chatting with a friend, knowing your why helps you choose the right words and tone for the job. Ethical communication is the foundation of trust and healthy relationships, both personally and professionally. It is about conveying your messages responsibly and with total integrity. This is especially important in our digital age, where information can spread almost instantly and have a massive, far-reaching impact on people's lives. When we communicate ethically, we aren't just thinking about the message, we are thinking about the responsibility we have toward our audience. Building trust depends on these ethical practices. If we are deceptive or irresponsible with our language, we erode that trust and can cause real harm. As we move forward, we will look at the specific pillars that guide us in making ethical choices every time we speak or write. To communicate ethically, we follow 5 pillars. First, be honest. Tell the truth and avoid misleading others through exaggerations or omitting important facts. Second, be respectful. Respect the dignity and privacy of others, use inclusive language, and be a patient listener. Third, be accountable. Take responsibility for your impact and be willing to apologize or correct misinformation promptly. Fourth, be fair. Give everyone a chance to be heard and avoid unfair judgments. Finally, be responsible. Use technology ethically. Don't engage in cyberbullying and always evaluate information before you share it. For example, a student who finds an error in their group report has an ethical duty to correct it and inform their team immediately. In the age of social media, our responsibility as communicators is greater than ever. A responsible communicator understands the power of media and uses it for constructive, not destructive purposes. Every message you send and every post you share contributes to your digital footprint. This is a permanent record that can impact your academic reputation, your future career, and your personal relationships for years to come. Ethical use of technology includes verifying sources, checking facts, and protecting personal information. Remember, if a public figure makes a false statement, the only ethical act is to publicly retract it and apologize. We must hold ourselves to that same high standard in all our online interactions. Let's see how all of this applies in a real-world office scenario. Imagine a marketing manager who needs to tell her team about a new project. She encodes her message by choosing professional language and a clear subject line for her email. The team members then decode that message by interpreting her words to understand their roles and the project requirements. However, even with a clear channel like email, misunderstandings can happen. A team member might decode the timeline and assume a task is due this Tuesday, while the manager actually meant the following Tuesday. This is why precision matters so much. Without clear encoding and careful decoding, even a simple project brief can lead to confusion and missed deadlines. Noise is anything that interferes with your message, and it comes in 4 main types. Physical noise is external, like loud music, construction sounds, or even a distracting pop-up ad on your screen. Psychological noise is internal. Think about how hard it is to focus when you're dealing with stress, anxiety, or personal problems. Semantic noise occurs when there are language barriers, or when someone uses too much jargon and technical terms that the listener doesn't understand. Finally, technical noise involves problems with the medium itself, such as a poor internet connection causing your video to lag, or a microphone malfunctioning during a big presentation. Recognizing these barriers is the first step toward overcoming them. As we wrap up this module, remember the foundation we've built. First, master the elements. Use your understanding of the sender, message, channel, receiver, feedback, noise, and context to analyze any situation. Second, follow the principles. Remember that communication is a continuous process that is inevitable, irreversible, and always tied to context and ethics. Third, communicate ethically. Be honest, respectful, and accountable in everything you do, especially online. Finally, apply the models. Use linear models for mass broadcasts, interactive models for feedback-based exchanges, and transactional models for those complex, simultaneous interactions we have every day. With these tools, you are well on your way to communication excellence. You can now log in to our course website at www.alsforals.com and download the text for Module 1, read and study further. Once you already master the concepts and topics, you can answer the quiz and accomplish the task, and then proceed to Module 2. Once again, this is Dr. Alex, and thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our course YouTube channel.